Speaking of a team that's a rival to Tennessee, let's go down to Gainesville. Joe, we have not done a deep dive on Florida, mainly because we partially already did one when we talk about Billy Napier potentially being fired. But now we look at the team as a whole going into this season. Joe, it has been vastly reported on. It has been vastly talked about that there is a good chance that Florida is going to have a season where they're not going to compete in the SEC or even have a winning record going into this year. The question has been brought up about Napier being fired in that too. Looking at them on the field, hot take, they're going to be better than they were a year ago on the field.
I almost don't know if that – so this goes in line with my whole take with them. I almost don't know if that really matters.
And that's the point. There's your punchline. You just gave the punchline to the segment in the early part of this.
So that's not my full take, though. This is the only team that we've done that there is a ridiculously wide spectrum of what they could do in 2024. There is an unbelievably weird range because you are right. They have improved. As much as we would love to sit here and clown on them as much as we've done, and I think a lot of college football pundits have done, they have taken advantage of the opportunity to point and laugh at Florida because they have not played to their potential. But they're returning enough of their important starters. Their offensive line's very underrated. They've got some defensive pieces. I think that Grayson Howard, who they took from South Carolina, is a name to pay attention to because he's a very gifted young linebacker. But what I'm talking about with this spectrum is they're either going to go 3-9 and be complete dog shit, and that's going to be the reason why that Billy Napier gets fired midway through the season, or they have a really strong 7-5 year and have a couple of upsets that are unexpected. That's where that wide range comes from.
That's the best thing that they could have happen to them, in my opinion.
There's nothing.
That is an outright ceiling. And you know what? Here's the ironic truth. If they go 7-5, can I tell you something with that schedule? It's like Billy Napier going 9-3 for me. I mean, Joe, there are things, we talk about this all the time. Things are not created equally. Joe, they start the season off with what we believe, you and I believe, that could not only be a playoff team, but might win their old conference in Miami. Buddy, it doesn't get easier there. You got LSU, Georgia, Texas, Florida State, all down, Ole Miss, all down the stretch, Joe.
One of the unexpected, because it gets talked about a lot how they have the hardest schedule in the country, which is very true. They only have 4 true road games.
Okay. But in saying all of that, if Napier goes 7-5 in that, I as a fan, I say, okay, he got to 9-3. Because that is an outright gauntlet. Okay? Joe, you're legitimately Miami, Georgia, Ole Miss, LSU, Florida State, and Texas. Joe, that's potentially half what people think that could be half of your playoff.
It's an unbelievable draw that they got. It's a ridiculous
if
draw.
He goes 3-3 in that, if he goes 3-3 in that, Joe, they beat 3 playoff potential going into the season playoff teams. A lot of people have poo-pooed on Florida. I'm going to use something that Cole Kubelik uses all the time. I agree full-heartedly with him on this. Sometimes in preseason college football, we logo look. So we look at the logo and the team that they were the year before and say, yeah, they're going to be amazing. We think about maybe with Texas and Florida State that could be on their schedule. What is LSU going to be? We don't know. I think 7-5 could be the outright ceiling for them. However, Joe, who are they upsetting? I mean, there is no team that – it's not like, Joe, that we're debating them and Mizzou, right? Because I think that they could beat Mizzou.
Okay, here's my They don't even play Missouri, do they?
That's but that's my point. They would in the East play them, but that gauntlet down the stretch is brutal.
Here are 5 games that they could unexpectedly pull out upsets. They could shock Miami in week 1.
I agree with you here.
They can shock Texas A&M because they get them at home. They could. This one's an unlikely one, but Tennessee on the road, very unlikely. Kentucky, who they get at home. They get Kentucky at home. And LSU and Ole Miss at home. They could steal one of those. The thing is where I got that 7-5. Well, hold on a second. Where I got that 7-5 number from is because, and we spent a lot of time last year, every time Georgia was playing at home, and I kind of scoffed at you. Unjustifiably. You kept telling me, man, you can't doubt the swamp. And there's truth to that. Last year, it didn't mean as much, but it kept them in a lot of games that they should not have been close in. And it helped them beat Tennessee very clearly because that environment was way too much for Joe Milton and that entire Tennessee team.
No doubt.
So I know that is a very tall task of those teams that I'm painting there. But there is a path for them. I named 5 games. They just need to win and steal 4 of those.
They're not still. See, now let's talk about the talent that's on the field. Now, I'm going to give Billy Napier this. Of the highest regard. Joe, do you know when we did a deep dive a year ago about Florida, you know what me and your conversation was about? 2/3 of it?
Was it Mertz?
Graham Mertz and how he sucks. That meaning you. And your boy, go back and watch.
Don't air me out like that. Don't air me out like that.
Your boy came and said, you better chill out. I'll give Billy this. Dog, the development that Graham Mertz made from Wisconsin to here is undeniable. It's undeniable. Joe, people said he dinked and dunked all over the place. He almost had 9 yards per play last year. That is also ridiculous. Jaden Daniels had 10. So I would just remind everybody, like Graham Mertz in that transformation was fantastic. Joe, I just don't know if they have the talent offensively with his scheme to upset somebody. I don't know that.
So I think though that where I'm coming at with this is that I look at this roster and it's not as bad as I think everybody has painted it. I feel like the criticism for Florida comes from this negative connotation for Billy Napier. It comes with this just negative feeling that Billy Napier is in and over his head. He's just in a situation that he can't succeed in.
It's not that he hasn't given us those opportunities when 2 guys with the same number on special teams runs out.
Did you see that did you see that they're going to use a special teams mat this year? Do you know what that is?
I do. We have 1 through 11, and you go and stand on your number. So fucking stupid. You don't need college.
No. As somebody who plenty of teams use the special teams mat. That is as somebody who's an expert in the special teams.
Yeah,
mat.
but Billy, how do you want to make sure that you don't have somebody?
If there's one extra guy the biggest piece is that you get to look at everybody standing in front of you and nobody's freaking distracted. Besides the point, though, this roster is not a complete one. You're losing Ricky Pearsall, which is going to be a detraction from your passing production. Your passing production could potentially go down. Montrell Johnson's still a really strong running back, and I think that while there's some departures on their offensive line, it's better than people think. Austin Barber is a really underrated tackle for them who was a little banged up last year, but still is a very gifted player. Very, very underrated, just general college football offensive lineman. Their defensive line, albeit it's a bit dinosaurish in terms of the mobility of it, but they got some huge ass dudes. I think that they've got 4 guys that are over 320 pounds, and they've got, I know that that's kind of carried by, oh my God, what's the gigantic guy's name? Why am I, Watson? Desmond Watson, is that what his name is? You know who I'm talking about? The 400 pounder?
Oh, yeah. Big 21.
They got, he can only go one play at a time. They have
it takes more energy for him to run on the field than what he does on the field.
I don't understand how they haven't tried to get that. In all seriousness, like that kid, how he hasn't lost weight from the running. That's tough. Besides,
It means you got to be eating. You got to be eating.
I'm sure he's lost a little. To stay on a positive
He's
note, to not say something mean about a player because I'm going to get caught my pants down again. Oh, that's the wrong word.
Oh my God, you made it worse. You made it
my
worse.
point until we got distracted. My main point is that they are a stronger roster than people think. No, they're not up to par with a team like Tennessee or Ole Miss, but I don't think that they're far off enough that they can't pull off an upset hosting these teams at home.
Joe, Tennessee got embarrassed by them last year. They're not going into Knoxville.
Yeah, I don't think that Tennessee's not a good example. Ole Miss,
Yeah.
what if Ole Miss comes skating in thinking that they're hot shit and they can't be touched and they start cold?
I think Lane Kiffin wants to make an impression on his new bosses.
Yeah, but Lane Kiffin also loves to lay eggs in games where he's not supposed to.
Yeah,
that's a trap game. That's a serious trap game.
I don't, Joe. If they're having the season that they're having, I don't think that they can have a trap game. Yeah, because man, that place is going to be having more buzz about a national championship run than it's ever had. And look, as somebody who legitimately has gone through 4 of them in the last 5 years for one fan base, when you have that kind of special season, brother, you legitimately want to hold on to what you have. Special teams can do special things. Again, momentum is a son of a bitch. I literally, Joe, again.
As a Notre Dame fan, though, who's watched teams lay eggs, and we know that Kiffin has a
I have 4 national championships in the sports that I cover in the last 5 years. I don't know.
Well, just wait till Brian Kelly's already done his signature lay an egg loss to Texas A&M in year 1, so
at least it wasn't Marshall. Anywho, okay. Joe, they bring in Ron Roberts. Billy and Ron know each other very well. Ron came into Southeastern as the head coach when the staff that I was recruited by left and Mike Lucas and the gang. I like Ron. Okay. I think Ron could do okay. I as a new part-time DC, assistant head coach, I don't know, whatever he wants to be called, let him be called it. They do have some players defensively, but their secondary, Joe, was abysmal. They were 70th in the country in yards passing allowed, but Joe, they gave up the most passing yards per catch than any team in the SEC last year at 13. They were abysmal. And so I don't know what they'll be in the secondary. I could see LSU walking in there with Nussmeier throwing it all over the place. I could see Jackson Dart throwing it all over the place. Nico throwing it all over the place. I just don't know if I see a path when it comes down to it, even though I think Graham Mertz is going to be better than he was last year, Joe. I think he's going to take another step. I really do. I can't get past 5 and 7, dog. I can't do it.
Let me ask you this, and I think I've asked you this before. How many wins keeps Billy in the seat at the job? I think that he has to. I think he has to go 7 and 5. I think that their patience is.
I think if he gets to a bowl game and by the grace of God wins that bowl game, and people say, "Okay, well, we're turning over a new leaf. Here comes DJ Lagway." I think that they give him one more year to see what he can do with DJ Lagway and go from there. That's what I think that they would do. I don't know that. I told you what I think is going to happen. I think if at the end by December, some big ass booster is going to give a check and say, "Get him the frick out of here. We want Kiffin." Florida is yearning, brother. Listen to me. They are ready to explode. That place spent $77 million on a new baseball stadium. You're going to have to start convincing me that they're not starting, that place isn't starting to get pissed off about seeing what Tennessee's doing and what Florida State's doing. Hell no, they ain't going to stick for that. I think he's gone no matter what, if I'm being real with you. If he goes 6-6, 7-5, I even think that there's still a chance he gets fired.
I don't think. Well, this is actually kind of similar to the whole Jimbo situation last year, where the Texas A&M didn't finish with a bad record last year.
$75 million, Joe.
Yeah, that was a much different circumstance. Yeah, I don't know. I think that the DJ Lagway part of this does not complicated, but it gives him a little bit more runway because he could at least sit in a meeting where they're trying to say, hey man, or he probably has already had this conversation of like, hey man, you need to do well this year. And he could say, okay, well, I've got this ridiculous schedule and I've got one of the brightest young quarterbacks in the country. If you just give me a shot, otherwise that kid's going to transfer and some idiot's going to step in and have to start.
You can't make a decision about a head coach because a quarterback's leaving.
I understand that.
There's no player that's on the roster that
I would argue. I would argue, and that was part of what helped Jimbo stick around as long as he did, because he was killing it in recruiting.
He brought in an entire class. We're talking about a quarterback.
Well, they also still had a very good class last year. I know that they lost a couple of kids at the end, but they still had a very, very good recruiting
class. There were
multiple
factors that Jimbo had, like $75 million buyout that played into that too.
No, wait. I'm not talking about his firing. I'm saying that what gave Jimbo a ton of runway, despite not doing like much at the beginning, was because he was recruiting.
$75 million contract, Joe. That's what kept it in the way. Let's be honest. If they would have,
I'm saying before the extension. I'm saying before they gave him the extension.
Before the extension, he went 9-1 in COVID and almost won the SEC.
Okay.
Either way,
forget that for a second. Okay. All I'm trying to say is that he's probably using this argument of, hey, we've brought this up on the show before. Dan Mullen didn't really do me a lot of favors. He didn't bring in a ton of guys for me to work with, and most of those kids are gone, and I had to start from scratch.
Bullshit. Princey Umanmielen had 7 sacks last year, was one of the better defenders, and Joe, we think he could be a double-digit sack guy at Ole Miss. You're going to have to spare me that he didn't leave talent or the program.
That's one dude that he had.
Okay.
That's one guy.
Okay, fair. Whatever.
Can't win
He was in the SEC
football games of one player.
He was in the SEC championship game the year before, and they cut ties with him because they thought he wasn't recruiting well. What do you think Billy's doing?
Well, Billy's doing the opposite. He's recruiting really well, and he's not doing shit on the field. So his whole argument right now is, I don't have the guys to win.
Okay, whatever. Bullshit. Joe, with the portal the way that it is now, you cannot convince me when Brian Kelly goes into a place, Marcus Freeman takes over a place, that
those are such completely different situations, because Brian Kelly's an established winning coach.
LSU was 6-6 with
32 championship games, but it's easier for him to step into a situation and hop right in the portal and immediately figure it out, because he has been around for a long time. If he calls a recruit, it's, oh shit, it's Brian Kelly who has been to a national championship game. When Billy Napier steps in Florida, he calls somebody and a recruit picks up the phone. They're going, you were just in the Sun Belt. Why would I trust you?
It doesn't matter, Joe.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, this is something that you and I argued about at the beginning of the season last year.
So Dan Lanning, explain that one.
He didn't start recruiting at a high level immediately in his first season.
No, but he
also took He took over a roster that was already completely well recruited by Mario Cristobal.
Okay, Lane, Kiffin.
They weren't good in year one.
No, but Joe, they've won 10 games the last 3 years.
That takes time.
I mean, like 10 had 2 10-win seasons the last 3 years.
Who was the coach before him? Was it Hugh Freeze?
Matt Luke.
Oh, yeah, Matt Luke didn't do shit.
Right. If you're in a place like Florida, you better be recruiting.
But he's also more established than Billy Napier was. Look, I'm not trying to defend him to all hell.
Sarkisian.
That took him multiple years. You were talking about how he was going to get fired last year.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. We said that a lot.
No, I didn't. They're going 5-7.
I don't
I never
disagree
said
that they're going 5-7, but all I'm trying to say is that like there's a little bit of a pocket here if they want to give him a little bit of time. I don't think that they will, though. I think that he is dead in the water.
He's gone. Enter Lane Kiffin. They need Lane Kiffin.
I still don't think that they're gonna, with all the money that they're spending. What differently is he gonna get at Florida?
Florida has more money and more talent. The only thing that he wouldn't have it would be, the thing that would sway him from that would be you have Florida State and Miami in that state. But I don't think it'd matter. I think he goes in there as the most premier recruiter in the country, the biggest face in the state. I mean, without question. And he's in the SEC. And Florida State has no idea what conference they're going to be in. There have been teams negatively recruiting Florida State because of it. That they're in utter chaos. I'm telling you.
I still don't think that he's going there.
Okay. But if you want, listen, Florida fans, last thing I swear to God, if you want to be a serious program, you got to go hire a serious coach. You can't keep pandering to the Billy Napiers of the world, the Dan Mullins of the world. You got to go get your white whale. Your white whale is in Oxford. Go get it.
Dan Mullen was a good hire.
What? He's not a white whale. He's not the white whale that you're in search for.
Mississippi State was ranked number 1 in the country for like a minute.
Okay. Everybody goes off that 1 year and forget about the other decade that every single year he went 6-6. Because that literally happened. He had one good year with Dak Prescott and literally had seasons of 4-8, 5-7, 6-6. Maybe he would jump up and get 8-4 1 year. Dan Mullen was go and look at it, please. Dear God.
They were 10-3 in 2014, 9-4 in 20.
Now go look at all the 6-6 seasons.
They were well. There's not that many. He only had 2 years under 500. This is at Mississippi State.
2 years under 500. How many years?
2 years. He was there for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He was there for 9 years. Only 2 are under 500.
5 years, 2 under 500. What were the other two? So he had 2 that were under 500, 2 10-win seasons. What's the other one?
He had a 9-win, a 7-win, an 8-win, a 7-win, a 9-win, a 6-win, and an 8-win.
Exactly what I said.
You hired at Mississippi State, though.
Dan Mullen is not a white whale. He's not a Brian Kelly. He's not.
So you're saying that they just need to, well, yeah, that's working great for USC right now.
He was not a lane.
Doing that shit that USC did is working great for them. That doesn't always work.
Kiffin's done it in this league and at a place that won't spend the money like Florida will.
I just don't know why Lane Kiffin would want to go there.
He's from there.
That doesn't matter.
Joe, says the guy that moved back home. Yeah, it doesn't. Being home doesn't matter. Okay.
He's in his.
That's what we call
40s.
Checkmate.
That's not a checkmate. You think that he's going? Oh, I get to move back to Jackson. He's not from Jacksonville. It's a huge state.
Pause. With his situation with his dad dying, I do wonder if it wants him to be closer back home.
This video is sponsored by the online fitness training camp presented by Chris Gates Fitness. When I first started talking about Chris, about partnering with our show, not only was I excited to have a fitness sponsor for our pod, but more importantly, when I found out about how he can help people achieve their goals, I was even more bought in, because when the football season starts, it is so tough to stay on top of things and also to be able to enjoy yourself on Saturdays when it's game day. With Chris Gates Fitness's online training camp, you're going to be able to effectively stay focused, consistent, burn fat, build muscle, and do it with a like-minded community of individuals working towards the same thing. On top of this, you're going to be able to get direct coaching from Chris and the ability to ask him questions with an access to a live Q&A where you can get direct, personalized support from Chris himself. Don't wait any longer. If you're trying to get in shape during this fall and you want to be able to do it with the right support system, head on over to chrisgatesfitness.com BetOnline.ag/training camp, or click the link in the description. And you need to do it today because you can get the first month. Personal training is expensive, folks. The first month for only $10 when you use that code Ruffino Joe. Don't wait any longer. Head on over there. BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.